boy Big Country also takes on Antonio Bigfoot Silva. UFC presents Dos Santos versus Overeem. Live from MGM Grand Prix Saturday, May 26th. Tickets on sale this Friday at Ticketmaster.com.
Good afternoon, everybody. Actually, good morning. Welcome to MGM Grand as we kick off the promotion for UFC 146 Memorial Day weekend at the Grand Garden Arena here at MGM. I'd like to thank our partners at UFC, Frank and Lorenzo Fertitta, of course the president of UFC, Dana White, who will run the press conference today, the fighters, welcome the media, and of course the fans who make this all happen with the fighters and the great events that we host here, both at MGM Grand and Mandalay Bay. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dana White, president of UFC.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. Media, fans, everybody else. This fight is a big one, and I mean that literally. Card stacked with heavyweights. Obviously, for the UFC Heavyweight Championship, Junior Dos Santos versus Alistair Overeem. Cain Velasquez versus Frank Mir. And Roy Nelson versus Antonio Silva. Who's got the first question? Kevin Ioli.
Hi, guys. First question, I guess, would be for Cain. You know, Cain, coming back after losing the title, I know there's a lot of demands on you as champion, and you referred to that a little bit. You know, when you consider the growth of the sport on such an upward spiral and all the demands and your desire to train as hard as you do, what have you learned about how you're going to deal with that in the future and make, you know, adjustments to what you do in terms of giving access to the media and marketing while also doing the training the way you need to?
I just know it's part of the job, you know. There's a PR side, and there's the training and fighting side, and I know it has to be a well-balanced thing. You know, I got to give my time to promote the fight, put myself out there, but also make a lot of time for training and fighting. It's just a thing of balancing act. You know, it's a part of the sport. So.
Did you feel at all, and no disrespect to Junior, but in that fight, did you think you split it the wrong way, maybe put too much toward your other responsibilities and not enough? Not at all,
not at all. I've always, for every fight camp, I've always got enough training, I think, for myself. So not at all.
A question for Frank, if I could. Frank, how much do you think the wrestling is going to be an advantage for Cain in this fight? Obviously, he wrestled at a higher level than you did, and you know you would do pretty well in submissions if you got onto the ground. But how much wrestling will be a factor in this?
I think wrestling is a huge factor in all the fights. Typically, the guy who's a better wrestler can decide where the fight goes, whether it's standing, whether it's on the ground. I just hope to make it to where both those are not viable, you know, choices.
And also, Frank, just coming off the submission that you did, do you think that has any kind of, you know, impact, like, you know, making Cain a little more wary of your submissions, knowing what you're capable of, even if he catches you in something?
No, not necessarily. I think that everybody is just like when you watch somebody knock somebody out, or vice versa. I think that you know, you pretty much figure that you see what they're good at, and you're aware of it. But you know, submissions, if you stay in good position, don't really come available to the other opponent. You know.
And then one last question, and I'd just like to address this to maybe Dana and a couple of the fighters, more of the fighters. You know, Alistair, maybe you can bring this up. You're a guy that came up from 205 up to heavyweight with John Jones fighting next month. I just wonder do you look at him long-term as a guy that will be a heavyweight, and do you see it with the body type that he has and the reach he has, a guy that could do what you did and succeed and move from light heavyweight and succeed at heavyweight?
Well, I believe John Jones is already walking around at 220. So was I. So I think if he has the proper diet and the right training, why not?
Go ahead, John.
Hey, Dana. Talk about putting this card together. Obviously, a lot of talk about the historic nature of it, all heavyweights. Did it just kind of come to the fights were all lining up, or was this like a real goal? Let's do something like this.
No, like I say every time, when you put together a fight, it depends on guys coming off injuries, last time they fought, where they are in the rankings, et cetera, et cetera. And this thing just started to line up as an all heavyweight card.
A lot of people are saying it's kind of a risk-reward thing. I mean, heavyweights have a tendency to either have really great, exciting fights or sometimes kind of slow, boring type fights. Was there any discussion about that, concern about that, to say, man, this thing could backfire on us?
Well, if you look at everybody sitting up here on this podium right now and think back to the last 5 or 6 fights these guys have had, there aren't too many boring fights that any of these heavyweights have ever been in. Obviously, anything can happen on any given night, but I don't expect them to be boring.
For Roy, please. Roy, I know prior to this fight being announced, you had been running a Facebook promo where you were talking about getting enough likes and dropping down to light heavyweight, then you take a heavyweight fight. Is that still an option for you, or is this kind of your commitment to say, no, I'm a heavyweight and I'm not going to make that move?
Actually, the things with the the likes and stuff, I got like 80,000 in a day, so it's like I like to think that I'm well liked. But a lot of people stopped as soon as I found out that I was fighting heavyweight. They didn't want me to drop down. They want me to stay at heavyweight right now. I think they just like to see me fight. But I'll do like the Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture. I'll fight at the 205 for retirement.
Nice move. And Junior, could you talk about just being here, obviously coming back as the champion? Cain Velasquez next to you here, kind of an odd little seating there. But what's the feeling is you being a champion now instead of the challenger?
Well, I'm feeling good. I like to be champion, and I think the heavyweight division now is very, very interested, and I'm here with another 5 heavyweights. I think it's a good point, a good time for the heavyweight division.
Hey guys, Ron Kruk with Inside MMA. Question for Dana. Dana, as you were putting this card together, this is as close to a heavyweight tournament that this promotion really has ever seen. Can you just talk about the title implications and the major shakeups that might take place in the rankings after this night?
No, it's a very good point. I think that, after this card happens, it's going to be interesting to see, how everything does shake out and who's in line for the next shot.
Question for Junior. Junior, I've heard many times that it's easier to win the belt than keep the belt. What are you doing in training to prepare to hold this belt for a long time?
I'm working hard, training hard every day, and I think the secret is just get prepared for everything, So I train every day very hard, and just doing my part to keep my belt.
And one quick one for Alistair. He's behind the podium. Alistair, you're a champion in so many other promotions, K1, Strikeforce. Do you feel coming into this fight, though, that this is the biggest fight of your career and that you still have to prove that you can be a champion in the UFC and in the major promotion? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, this definitely is the biggest fight of my career. I mean, the UFC is the biggest show on the planet. So I definitely see this as my biggest challenge. And like I said, I'm very excited about it. Training hard every day. And it's going to be a great show.
Dana, it seems like through history there's always been the allure of the heavyweights. That's what people like to see. They want to see the heavyweights. Can you just talk about that, and maybe the fighters, if they don't mind, just kind of expressing the interest in the heavyweights and why they feel there is so much interest in the heavyweight and that heavyweight division?
I think because the heavyweights bring that excitement of, you're probably going to see a knockout, but in this, heavyweight show, there can be knockouts, there can be submissions, whatever it may be. I think that, the fight between Alistair Overeem and Junior Dos Santos, the stand-up that both of these guys possess, I mean, nobody's really been able to go toe-to-toe with this guy at all. He knocks everybody out or, outstrikes them. And then Alistair Overeem, with the destruction of Brock Lesnar, looked pretty nasty. So the main heavyweight card for the belt is a very, very exciting fight. And then as you go right back down the card, you got guys that are strikers. Frank Mir, obviously pretty scary after his last win and what he was capable of doing. This isn't your typical allure of the heavyweights card. These guys can do anything.
Do you mind going down just a list? And what's the allure to you of the heavyweight division?
I think if you just do percentages, we actually finish fights. So it's one of those things. Everybody likes the home run ball, in baseball, and everybody likes a good dunk in NBA. So we're just the guys that, you just like to see us finish. I mean, that's pretty much, it's that simple.
Yeah, just big guys that throw exciting fights, you know, and then showing that the big guys are athletic, that punches and kicks, that move around the ring really well, or the octagon, and you know, just all the power that these guys possess. I mean, you know, heavyweights were known for a lot of power.
Well, just heavyweight, so too much power involved, you know. So I think like Roy said, we finish fights. So that's why I'm here, and I'm gonna be prepared to on the day of the fight to finish one more fight.
I would say because the heavyweight division is the biggest and baddest of all heavyweight, of all divisions. And yeah, like the other guys said, a lot of knockouts, a lot of submissions, but basically we're the biggest and the baddest.
Yeah, I think it kind of works on the fact that when you see a 135-pound fighter fighting, he can be the baddest dude at 135 and 145 and 155. But I think a lot of people, when they're watching the fights, in the back of their mind, they kind of feel that, yeah, but I'm 220. Even though he knows how to fight, I could probably kick his ass. We're the heavyweights. If you're thinking that, you're stupid.
Heavyweights são sempre boas lutas, são sempre dois lutadores de níveis, lutadores pesados, qualquer coisa pode definir, e creio eu que vai sair boas lutas daqui, vai sair só guerra.
Heavyweights always bring fantastic fights. Everybody on this podium today is a top-notch fighter, and you're going to see some fantastic fights on May 26th. It's going to be a good war.
Dana, in boxing, they say the sport goes according to where the heavyweight, so goes boxing. But that's not necessarily the way it is with the UFC, because it isn't just the heavyweights. You guys have flourished with the lighter weights also.
Yeah, and I think that happened in boxing too. You know, when the heavyweight division sort of fell apart in boxing, you saw guys like Oscar De La Hoya and now Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather, and the list goes on and on, of guys that people are interested in and want to see fight. And you're right, in the UFC, you know, we just introduced the 125-pound division, and you know, people got to look at them now and how exciting those fighters are. And I think that if you're a fight fan, you're just looking to see exciting fights no matter how big they are. But there's no doubt about it, the heavyweights are always fun to watch and very interesting.
This also for Junior. Junior, we know about your stand-up. Dana was talking about that, how you've been so dominant. And we know that when people are good at something, they tend to want to practice that the most. That's what it seems like. What's the percentage of your time do you spend on your boxing skills when you train as opposed to other areas of MMA?
Well, I used to train boxing every day. And the other areas like jiu-jitsu, I used to train 3 times a week. And wrestling, Muay Thai is a little bit... it's not too much like boxing, because you know, because I love boxing, and I'm a really confident guy on my hands, so I really believe I can knock anyone out.
This question is for Dana over here. You talked before about how the UFC heavyweight division hasn't always been that strong. In your opinion, is this the strongest that the division's ever been?
No doubt about it. Yeah, it's absolutely the strongest it's ever been. There's so many great fighters now in the heavyweight division, and a lot of great fights to be made.
And can you talk a little bit about what the addition of the Strikeforce heavyweights will bring for the UFC?
Yeah, no, that's it's been a great addition. Like I said, we always want to bring in the best fighters from all over the world, and to be able to now bring the guys over from Strikeforce is awesome.
And one final question for Frank. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, finding an optimal size for performance at heavyweight? There was a period, you know, where you had gotten really big when you were fighting Carwin and Lesnar, and now you seem to have slimmed down a little bit. Can you talk about finding an optimal performance size?
I think it's all dependent on the athlete. I find for myself in the gym, I can look at my performances, my conditioning, my speed is best when I'm a little bit lighter. I thought that gaining size would have helped me make up for the size difference in Brock, but that was really more of a technical difference. I was looking more for, I looked at the wrong area on what to improve. So right now, I'm happy where I'm at right now.
For Alistair, please. Alistair, most people consider Junior the best boxer in the heavyweight division. I'm curious what your assessment is, if you agree with that, and also where you think he stacks up considering the type of strikers you fought through your career in MMA and K1, of course.
I definitely see him as the best striker and the best boxer in MMA and UFC these days. And how he stacks up against me, well, we're just going to have to wait and see. I give myself a good chance.
How do you feel he compares to past opponents? I mean, do you consider he's higher level than guys you fought in the past, or does your K1 experience mean that you fought better strikers than him or better boxers?
Well, K1 is slightly different because it's kickboxing. There's no ground involved. The gloves are a little bit bigger, but I definitely do think that experience is going to come in handy in this fight.
For Frank, please. Frank, obviously the setbacks you had in recent times were against guys that seem to have a similar style to Kane, and the fact that, big, strong wrestlers, that sort of thing. So when you look at this fight, does that concern you at all? I mean, or is that, does he stack up similar to them, or that's just what happened those nights or those athletes?
No, that concerns me greatly. I think wrestling is one of the hardest things stylistically I have a hard time with. And so it's always going to be an issue, and it's something for me to constantly improve on and work on in the gym.
And this is a number one contenders bout now, so you're right back on the cusp again. When you were having those losses, was there ever a time that you lost faith, lost focus, that sort of thing, or did you always know that you'd be right back here on the cusp of a title shot?
No, I'm human. There's times when you sit there and you despair, and it doesn't seem like you're going to make it. And then the next day you get back on your horse and you keep on trying. Luckily I have a strong family unit and friends around me that help keep me motivated and in the right direction. Thanks,
Frank. For Antonio, quickly. Antonio, can you just talk about how you feel being here? It seems like it's been a long journey to get here, but now you're up here with, the world's absolute best heavyweights.
Antônio, você pode falar um pouquinho como você se sente estando finalmente dentro do UFC? Foi uma jornada longa para você conseguir chegar aqui, mas chegou e você está agora dentro da mesma organização que os melhores heavyweights do mundo.
Olha, o sonho de todo atleta é sempre estar nos melhores eventos. E hoje eu estou no melhor evento e eu estou muito feliz de estar aqui e poder lutar com os melhores. E garanto a vocês que vou dar o meu melhor nas melhores lutas.
Every athlete dreams of being in the best organization, and I'm here now in the best MMA organization. So I'm going to give my all. I'm going to give 100% to give you guys great fights while I'm here in the UFC.
And one follow-up as well. You were obviously training with the Black Zillions. Alistair came to the Black Zillions, and you left. I'm curious if that means, that's somebody that you anticipate a fight with, that you're targeting a fight with Alistair at some point.
E você agora estava treinando com os Black Zillions e ele quer saber se essas mudanças no seu treinamento vêm de você estar em algum lugar da sua cabeça já antecipando uma possibilidade de lutar contra o Alistair.
Olha, sempre 6 semanas da minha luta eu fecho meu camp e eu estava lá treinando no meu dia a dia. E a partir do momento que eu fiquei sabendo que o Wolverine estava indo, eu decidi sair, porque a gente está numa rota de colisão. Então mais cedo ou mais tarde eu sei que a gente vai lutar um dia.
I always take care of my camp and make sure that I'm surrounded with the right people. I was training at Black Zillions, and yes, I think it's inevitable. Alistair Overeem and I are on a collision course, and there is a possibility of us fighting one another one day. So when I heard that he was going over there, I decided to take my camp elsewhere.
Dana, following up on Anthony's question a second ago, you said that you thought the UFC heavyweight division was the best it's ever been. I wonder if you can compare it to what Pride was in, say, at its peak in 2004 when they had Krokop and Nogueira and Fedor at his prime and those guys. Do you think that the depth of your division now, compares favorably with what that division was in those days?
Yeah, no, their heavyweight division was awesome. That's where a lot of legends were built over there. And yeah, absolutely. I think that's where our heavyweight division is finally getting it. And we've had this, the division's been great and stacked for a few years now.
And the question for Kane, when was the last fight you lost a wrestling match? When was the last time you had a defeat before November?
In wrestling at the national tournament.
That was what, 05? So how is that, coming back? It's been a long time between losses. Mentally, is that a tough thing? Frank talked a little bit just a second ago about, sometimes you feel that despair. How about you? How have you found it? And has it been difficult to kind of get back on the horse and get your confidence back?
Not difficult, no. I mean, I love what I do, and it's just like, in wrestling, I mean, you have a loss, I mean, it's not the end of the world. You have to come back stronger, be healthy, just watch film and just to see what you did wrong. You know what I mean? Learn from your mistakes. I mean, that's the only thing you can do. You can't really dwell on that kind of stuff. Just kind of move on forward and kind of just try to get better. So that was it.
And Dana, it seems like, especially say HBO and Showtime in boxing, where losses will hurt guys a lot, and you don't necessarily hold a loss against a guy if he fights well. How do you evaluate, like when one of your guys loses, like Kane's one of the best fighters in the world, how do you evaluate where he goes after a loss compared to, in a win? In other words, how far do you drop him down before you bring him back up?
Yeah, well, he was the undefeated heavyweight champion, and he came into that fight. He lost to Junior Dos Santos, another one of the best fighters in the world. To start to evaluate a guy on losses is when he loses a bunch in a row or loses to a guy he probably wasn't supposed to lose to, or something like that.
A question for Kane. Kane, you were just saying that you looked at some film with your loss against Junior. Were there any lessons learned from that fight that moving forward will help you in your career?
Yeah, just to implement the game plan sooner. I kind of hesitated a little bit on that, and Junior just capitalized on that. So just learn from that. Yeah.
And a question for Frank. Frank, former UFC champ, veteran fighter. Now you're back at the doorstep. Number one contender fight. As a veteran guy, do you appreciate this opportunity maybe a little bit more than you did earlier in your career?
Yeah, I believe I do. Just for the reason being, when you first become a champion, sometimes everything is overwhelming, and you don't get to really appreciate things till you step back. Kind of like as you get older, you get to look back on things and you get to see it for appreciation for the first time sometimes. And so, as now being a possibility of going back up for it, I get to appreciate it again. I get to realize things slow down a little bit. They're not so hectic and so fast.
Dana, if you could use an adjective to describe each one of these guys, what would you, just each one, if you could, for me?
Oh God, I mean, hairy. Amazing chin, amazing heart. Well-rounded, incredibly talented, knockout artist. Probably, maybe one of the greatest kickboxers, Muay Thai stylists right here. This guy breaks stuff. Okay, probably the greatest submission heavyweight ever, and the guy on the end there is a man on a mission. He wants to get that heavyweight shot.
For Kane, is there any preference of who you'd want to face, assuming you obviously want to get back to that title shot? Would you want a rematch with Junior more so than, say, Alistair?
Right now, just thinking about Frank. I definitely have a tough fight ahead of me. Frank has been in this sport for a while. He's also a previous champ. And it looks like he's always improving, so I just have all my energy and my mind on him right now.
And Junior, would you say that Alistair is the best striker that you've ever faced?
I don't know. I think so, but yeah, I think he's pretty good. Like he has very good stand-up skills. He's he's a striker. I'm a striker. Somebody's gonna get knocked out. I think so. Or you guys will see a striker trying takedowns.
Another question for Junior, please. Junior, a lot of talk today of how the heavyweight division is the best it's ever been. How does that make you feel as the champion? Is that motivating or a little uneasy to look around and see all these new faces that are kind of coming for you?
A sua divisão agora dizem que é a mais forte que já teve, que é a divisão dos pesados. Isso para você é uma motivação ou isso te deixa nervoso, vendo todos esses rostos novos chegando e crescendo dentro do esporte?
I think it's motivate me because heavyweight I think is the most important division because just big guys, very, like I said, very too much power involved. So I think it's good for me because motivate me a lot to work harder and to try to keep my belt.
And then if I could just ask a version of the same question to Frank, please. Frank, you might be the only guy up there that kind of was around in this division when it didn't have the depth it did now. What's it like for you to see the heavyweight division where it is now, and did you always kind of envision this day?
You know, the one thing was back in the day, the fights kind of got spread out a little bit farther because there wasn't as many guys to match up against. You know, anytime you're trying to make a run towards a title, the worst thing in the world is to get an opponent that when you tell people you're fighting them and they ask who that is. At least now we don't have that issue. I mean, almost everybody in the top 10 of the UFC, everybody is a household name, recognizable, and that makes it much more pleasurable to train and fight because there's always a risk when you walk into the octagon. I'd rather take that risk against a guy that's considered dangerous than take that risk against a guy who's, you know, an unknown.
Is that it from the media? You guys done with us? All right, let's open it up to a couple of fan questions. If fans have any questions, just raise your hand. We'll let you guys up with a couple of questions.
How you doing, gentlemen? My question is actually for Mr. Overeem. I'm just wondering how the Black Zillion camp is different from Golden Glory, and why didn't you choose any camps here in Vegas? We got a lot of good camps out here.
Well, Black Zillions, more blacks, more Brazilians. Now, I would say the big difference is Golden Glory consisted mostly of K1 guys, and I had to fly a lot of sparring partners in, and Black Zillions basically have everything in-house. Now I have to fly K1 guys in, by the way, K1 sparring partners. Oh, and why didn't I choose Vegas? Well, I'm going to be living in Miami permanently. I like it over there. The weather is slightly better than Vegas. I'll still be in Vegas pretty much every now and then visiting UFC, but yeah, we made a good deal with the Black Zillions, so it's going to be Miami.
Hey, Roy Nelson, do you agree with what Dana said when he said that nobody's been able to stand with Junior Dos Santos in striking?
No.
You know what I meant. You know what I meant. Troublemaker. Nobody? This is the first. One more?
Frank, how long do you think it's going to take you to get back to the belt?
Well, obviously, you know, May 26th, or May, I have a very tough, you know, opponent ahead of me. And then after that, hopefully the winner between Alex and Dos Santos, you know, usually, you know, 6 to 8 months after that. So hopefully before the end of the year or the beginning of the next year, I could be in a title fight.
Good luck, man.
All right. Thank you guys very much. We appreciate it. I'm going to get these guys up here or square off for photo ops. Thanks for coming today.